one of the things that I think has been huge for the leadership team over the years, as well as for the members of our Dynamis family, is getting that catechesis from priests and from speakers that really will tell it how it is. Specifically, I'm referring to Father Chad Ripperger.
Welcome to the Rich Dawn, where eternal beatitude begins in this life. I'm Kyle Dean, and today I have with me Jake Mrugalski, the founder of Videography, the co-founder of Dynamis Western New York with yours truly, and the best man at my own personal wedding, which was also shot very well. Jake, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Kyle. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm a big fan. I've been watching, I've been subscribed, and I know we've been talking about this day for a while now. It's good to be here.
100%, man. And I just thank you so much for being one of my best friends of all time, man. This is like a really, really special episode because, of course, professionally, we're going to bring together the different things that's going on in your life. And, of course, the fact that you and I are kind of like the men behind Dynamis, which is a huge deal. But also, we've just been through so much together on a personal level.
Right.
So this is just a really special moment.
Yeah.
In the life of the podcast. So thank you for all your support in all of those areas and more, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Godfather of my firstborn, this is really special. And, so just to kick it off by starting about your craft with videography and everything else, we got a really nice setup today because you've brought some really, really nice stuff to the studio, man. Can you tell us a little bit about, JM Videography and what got it going?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you for asking. You guys have probably seen the setup looks a little different today. I mean, we're still in the same studio and everything. We just, changed things up a little bit. I brought in some of the equipment I use in my professional life with the video. But yeah, JM Videography is a business that I just started recently. It started out really as a hobby. So, I was just doing videos and, doing it for fun. I was always a fan of YouTube, in my teenage years and, as it became more popular and, I'd be subscribed to different vloggers and things and I'd be like, wow, that's so cool. I'd love to get into that. And, so I did. I started filming videos on my phone and, I was just uploading them, not really caring who saw them. They're kind of just for me and the people who was in the videos that I was making.
Right.
And over time, I started just acquiring equipment. I got a little action camera to start, one of those wide fisheye ones that, you could tell it's this is a GoPro type video. And,
Yes.
I just started doing that. And then eventually, I would just start capturing, family events. We'd have a family party and I'd take video and turn it into a little vlog or a little music video. And, then my family, my cousins, we started all getting girlfriends and eventually getting married. And I would film, weddings for family members. And actually your wedding, which I was the best man at, was one of the first weddings that I ever filmed. And it wasn't professional at that point. It was just kind of for fun. And
yet I said it was very well shot because I didn't even realize you were capturing video somehow in addition to doing all of your best man duties. And we didn't hire a videographer. We didn't even think of it in our budget. And the fact that we have that heirloom is thanks to you, man. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how you did it.
Yeah. So anyway, it grew from there. I had people start requesting hey, can you film my wedding like you did for this person's? And I was just yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. I was doing it for fun. And then eventually that kind of transition happened where it's okay, now, I have the experience. I'm developing these skills in videography and, now maybe I can start looking at turning this into a side business kind of thing. So that's kind of where it started. Fast forward to today, I've got probably, I want to say 20, between 15 and 20 weddings under my belt, as well as a few other types of professional events, commercials, things like that I've been doing. I have equipment to go along with that, which you guys are seeing some of today. And yeah, so that's kind of how I came into this role that I've created for myself from a hobby.
That's super cool. And that's how entrepreneurialism works in a snapshot, right? Like you find something you're passionate about, you get some experience under your belt, and then, it just kind of organically develops from there. And so you have also a YouTube channel.
Yes.
Jake Mrugalski.
Yep.
And over 1,000 subscribers.
Yes.
And that was just, I happen to know the story. I don't know if you want to share it, but, you started out of, doing the family things, and it was really just kind of, like you said, available to whoever would want to tune in. And that in and of itself, taught you more. Like you gained some experience in the YouTube realm when you got some exposure. How did that happen? I'll just ask.
Yeah. So, my videos that I had been making up until a certain point were really not getting any views. Like it was just like, my family and stuff. Like,
sure.
So it wasn't like really content that people were necessarily looking for. And actually the turning point for me was when I started just doing like voiceover videos of prayers. So the first one that I posted was it was a meditation by Saint Mother Teresa, and essentially what it was I was just showing images of Jesus and the Blessed Mother, and I was talking over the video, just reading a meditation that she wrote, and it was just more for myself because my wife Sarah, hi Sarah, was actually showed me this meditation by Mother Teresa. And I really loved it, but there was no good quality recordings of it anywhere on the internet. There was one that I found, I think it was by Father Larry Richards, that, he just read it, but it was kind of like a low quality, kind of choppy audio. And I was like, like it would be nice to have like a good quality audio version of this that I could just refer back to, like if I didn't want to read. So I posted that, and that one took off. It was getting thousands more views than like I was ever used to. So I'm like, oh, that's great. So I started doing more of those and kind of grew in that. And actually my best performing video to date is just a voiceover of the Padre Pio prayer, "Stay with me, Lord," which I know that you have a strong affinity to Padre Pio.
100%.
And, yeah. So that's still my best performing video. I'm not in it. There's no video in it. It's literally just screenshots and audio. And I think that one's approaching 500,000 views now.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how I got into my head, like, hey, maybe I could actually like start building subscribers and like making a legitimate channel rather than just like using it as my own dumping ground for like home videos.
Right.
So
you heard it here, folks. The Saints grew the channel.
That's right. That's right. Amen to that.
The greatest marketers of all time, along with all the other things they bring to the table.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. I love that story, and I it's funny. I'm like, because we know each other so well. I'm like, is he ready to share that? I don't know, but obviously, I'm glad you did, because like I always, when you first shared that story with me, I kind of thought like, wow, like Padre Pio, like developed Jake's YouTube channel. Like you just don't think of it like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like people think of like an earthly marketing system, or just think about, like you said, like just, this is just a hobby. I don't care about growing anything. And even just starting this channel too, like you get meta with it sometimes, because
right.
you have to continually evaluate. It's like, I feel like it's like the artist's like conundrum too, right? Like it's like, the punk rock, like, I'm just doing it for the love of the music, man. I'm not doing it for the business aspect. And then something might happen and things get bigger. And then you ask yourself, like, am I going to fundamentally change the spirit of what I'm doing, or am I going to incorporate it? And then it becomes even more layered when you're actually trying to live a Catholic lifestyle like we are, or any spiritual lifestyle.
Right.
But especially where you're like, I'm trying to get to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I'm not going to just do things it's like, it reminds me of like, what is the point of gaining the whole world but then losing your soul? Right. So I know that that's something that I reflect on a lot when you really do start to put yourself out there in the light. Like,
right.
What made you want to incorporate your faith into your channel, like in the first place? Does it just go back to, your love for the faith in general, or?
Yeah, I really, it was because I realized that YouTube or any social media platform for that matter could be a tool for evangelization, because a lot of the things that I learned, theology wise, faith wise, I learned on YouTube and online. And I thought, well, there's not like a ton of stuff out there, for theology and for faith stuff. Now there is a good community around it, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But at the
Especially
time,
recently.
yeah, but at the time it was something that was more niche, and it was something that I felt like I was benefiting, others by making this content. It was by no means like this like huge like creative process like, some of my other projects had been. It was more, it was more intimate. It was, just me sitting alone with a microphone, reading these words of these holy people, and just like seeing how well that Padre Pio video did, and just like seeing like, wow, like literally hundreds of thousands of people, have seen this and maybe are hearing this prayer for the first time. And, having that reach, it's like I couldn't go around and start reading off this prayer to, half a million people. Like, it's like having that reach is huge. And that's kind of what inspired me to, start adding that type of content to the channel. Is like, well, hey, I throw this on, and even if it helps one person, or even if they're going through something and these words, mean something to them or give them consolation, like, just being able to know that I could have a part in that, it was huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just knowing you personally, like the level of humility that you bring to the table, like whether it's in the ministry life that we've experienced, whether it's just being real about like what's going on with our faith, with its highs, its lows, and everything. Like it's just so cool to like be able to talk about this in a way that people can know a little bit more about the man behind that, because you just, like you said, you were just, intimately reading something. You're not on the video at all or anything, but like you did that, man. So thank you, because it inspired me.
No,
even if I'm just that one person,
But thank you.
Yeah,
it actually, just talking about it, like, it almost kind of gives me that pull to get back into that stuff, because I haven't made, a video like that in a long time, years.
Right.
And, to think like that's still my best performing video, it's like, first of all, like that says something as far as what people are looking for, and like, striving for, like having that type of content. But another thing is just like thinking back about how it made me feel to make those, and like the sense of closeness I had with God, like knowing like, yeah, like I'm making this for you. I'm making this like in praise and in worship and in service to you, in hopes that other people will hear this and be able to share in what I'm feeling. So it's actually a good reminder. Like I would love to maybe get into that again in the future. It's simple, it's easy, but it packs such a powerful punch,
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we can get a little bit more into the origins of your faith and then talk about Dynamis. But before we do that, I want to really just hone in on JM Videography. Like, is there a way for people to get in touch with you? Like, are you accepting more business at this time, or are you loaded? Like, where are you at in your entrepreneurial pursuits?
Yeah, so thank you. JM Videography is definitely accepting new clients. You can go to jmvideography.com. You can check out my Facebook or Instagram pages, JM Videography or at Jake Mrugalski. But yeah, I'm definitely taking on new projects. It's still what I would consider like a side hustle, I guess you'd say at this point, because I still do have a full-time job. But I'm always looking for new opportunities, whether it's wedding stuff, whether it's commercials, events, or creative stuff too. So if you're interested, anyone in the audience, definitely reach out. I'd love to work with you.
Absolutely, and for the sake of our listeners and not viewers, that's at Jake Mrugalski, Mrugalski. So
Yeah, Polish, nice Polish
Yes,
last name there.
yes, Mrugalski. So I just said that like an Italian, actually.
Well, I am half Italian, 50-50, so.
There it is.
Yeah.
My man. So getting into, you know, the whole, the ethos that's behind Jake the man, right? Your faith. Like, so obviously I know, but like, you've been a Catholic your whole life. Like, do you want to maybe explain a little bit about that? And then we can get to like, you know, the moment that brought us together, both in our friendship and then also, you know, with Dynamis.
Yeah. So I guess I'll cover up until that point where we first met. So, like Kyle said, I was born and raised Catholic, grew up in an incredible household, loving parents, loving siblings, amazing childhood, absolutely amazing. And, you know, we went to church every Sunday, we went to every holy day of obligation. I even went to Catholic school, St. Mary's of Swarmsville, in Amherst, East Amherst area, for those who are familiar with the area. And so I grew up with, you know, every, I guess you'd say, advantage in being aware of the faith and knowing it. And, you know, so I had catechesis, I went to church school, you know, received the sacraments through the school that I was attending at the time. And so it was a beautiful childhood. And I mean, I will say, like a lot of Catholics, once I became a teenager, that's when I kind of started questioning things, like, you know, what is all this about? Like, you know, why am I going to Mass every Sunday when I don't even really understand it or don't necessarily get anything out of it, so to speak? And, you know, so those questions started coming up as I grew up. And, you know, my parents, God bless them, when it was time for my confirmation, they kind of handed me the reins and they said, like, if you're going to go through this, like, we're giving you that responsibility. Up until this point, like, you know, it was our job to make sure that you made it to Mass and, you know, make sure that you were trying to, you know, live out the best moral life. And, you know, once you get confirmation and you like take that on, like, we're leaving it up to you. So after confirmation, like, it's up to you whether you want to go to Mass every Sunday. It's up to you whether, you know, you're going to make your holy days of obligations. Because, you know, I was a teenager with a job and a car at this point. Like, you know, so in a sense, like, because I appreciated that so much from them giving me the reins of my faith journey, I almost felt empowered to continue on with that. So, you know, once I got confirmed, I did, you know, continue to go to Mass and continue doing those things and trying to have a prayer life to the best of my ability. And, you know, I will say over that time, you know, once I moved out and wasn't really in that environment anymore, you know, of my parents, because like we would say, like, the Chaplet of Divine Mercy is a family together every day, like the whole family, you know, eat dinner as a family, go to Mass together. You know, once you move out, it's like you're not experiencing that all the time, and it almost kind of falls away, like, if you don't have that strong relationship. And so I did start to fall away a little bit. I was still going to church, but it was kind of, you know, more of like an obligation of like, oh, I'm going to church because I don't want to go to hell when I die.
Sure.
Which, you know, I think a lot
fire
of
insurance.
Yeah. So fire insurance, exactly. So I think a lot of people, you know, may feel that way. You know, I've spoken with people about this that feel that way.
Sure.
But there came a time where I felt like I was missing something. You know, I had graduated college, I'd started a full-time career, and, you know, I had a few relationships throughout the years, you know, that were unsuccessful or, you know, not really rooted in faith, so to speak. And I was getting tired. I was feeling lost. I was feeling empty. I felt like my relationship with God wasn't there like it was when I was like a kid going to like conventions and retreats and stuff. And like I missed that. Like, I really missed like the experience of awe of just like going to a retreat and like seeing like Jesus in the form of adoration, and like, you know, just like being surrounded by like-minded people that like we're all there like for one thing, to worship and celebrate the relationship with God. And so that's when I started just kind of doing my own research to see what's out there. What's out there in Western New York. It's like I came from a small parish. There's really no young adult groups in there that I could like kind of link in with. And upon that search, I actually found just on a Facebook post this Charis retreat, it was called, in Allegheny State Park, a beautiful area with, tons of nature, woods, and
it was hosted at Camp Turner.
Camp Turner, yeah. So I signed up for that, and my journey kind of evolved from that point, and that's actually where I met you for the first time at that retreat.
Yeah, absolutely. That was April 23rd, 2016 was the Saturday.
This guy knows his dates, people. I can tell you from being friends with him, he has good records.
My buddies in college would definitely like joke because it's almost like a savant like thing, but and I mean, God gave that gift to me for a reason, right? It's proven to be, very useful for building his kingdom. And that day was no different than many days that are significant to recall because it was a beautiful sunny day. We, that was like the bulk of the retreat, right? We came, you have cabins for men, cabins for women, and we all came together. We just had fellowship. We did a hike in the woods. And we really came together as young adult Catholics. It was kind of for people our age. And yeah, so much happened that day, including the seed being planted that the bishop was requesting a young adult ministry for basically to serve all of the churches that comprise of our diocese, right? The 8 counties that make up Western New York, including Allegheny County, where this fateful day happened. And so that's where our friendship began. You saw I brought my Guadalupe comforter, in the one cabin that was for all the men. We just, struck up a rapport immediately.
Right.
It was just really organic.
Yeah, and just to give some context on that, as I said before, like this was I was going in for the first time in a while to something like this. So I was new to the, young adult scene in terms of like ministry and faith. And I came in like very anxious and very nervous because I didn't know anybody. I'm kind of an introvert, which is why I'm usually behind the camera in most situations. But just to give you some context, I'm just chilling there. And then in comes Kyle. He's got, I think you had some aviator shades and like a bandana wrapped around your head. And you're just like, hey man, I'm Kyle. Like, nice to meet you. And like, I immediately, like, my comfort level went way up. Just like having like someone like that I could say I knew or that like I could like go to if there was like a, icebreaker or something. Cause, I get nervous like speaking in public and things like that. But yeah, so like you just came in. Actually, Lauren, who is now your wife, was there. I met her the first time there.
Yes.
While you guys, I think you were just fresh with starting to court each other.
Indeed.
And but yeah, I just wanted to add that context.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, no, I definitely I'm a hugger too.
Yeah.
I love to hug people who are open to it. And I just really there's a light that I've been blessed with, and it's my responsibility to share it. And I appreciate you sharing that witness. And of course I remember that moment because that was it, man. That was the seed that's planted and rooted into our entire friendship and so many others that were there that day too, because we had these icebreakers and we all got to know each other. We, learned about the calling for Dynamis and a lot of people ended up meeting I think some people met their spouses or at least continued to develop in that way like Lauren and I did. And, there was also another young adult group that was going on at the time for Sadi. I don't know that you were connected before with that? Or?
Well, not prior, but I started going to that after I heard about it at the retreat. Yeah.
As I recall well, because we talked about Dynamis more in that context as well. But for Sadi Western New York, it was prevalent back then. My now wife was on the core team at the time. Mm-hmm. So she and I met, and then she wrote me immediately into Versati. She had been, serving them, all of the community outreach, setting up volunteer events for years. And, I had previously, just by happenstance, was at another young adult 20s, 30s group at its very first formation meeting. In the year before that, when I just started in my faith, because I kind of had like a conversion in my 20s. I didn't have the same upbringing as you had. And when I learned about Frassati and then the calling for Dynamis, like, that was my first exposure to young adults that were truly taking their faith seriously while also having like a joy.
Right, yeah.
And Charis was like the rallying cry where it was like, we need to, respect and serve our bishop. There's this movement that's about to come. Mm-hmm. Right. So then, of course, as the time went on and we were at Frassati and everything else, we got together. There was like, I think 6 of us, right, to start. Mm-hmm. And we started having these core team meetings at Dynamis, and talking about it and learning about what does the bishop want from us, right? He wants us to kind of be like a hub for all the different young adult activity that's happening throughout the diocese. He was very specific that it's not to be parish specific, right? It's not hosted at any one parish, but it's for all of the parishes, and it's kind of like the hub for everybody to come together and to grow in that like seriousness of the faith, but also to proclaim the joy of the gospel. In a word, the new evangelization, 2 words. Right? That was like the big buzzword at the time.
Yes.
And and so like I kicked the football back to you, man. Like, so we're starting to do that. Like, I guess I'll ask, like, what made you, okay, so you went to the Charis retreat, you wanted to plug in with young adults, but like, what made you really want to answer the call to Dynamis?
Yeah, so I mean, at the time, I was still practicing, I was still going to mass, but I felt like in my free time, like, I wasn't really doing a whole lot. Like, I wasn't being productive. I didn't feel like I was growing, personally, professionally, or spiritually. And I knew that I needed to take on more. I wanted to get myself out there. I said I get a little anxious, and when I heard about this ministry at the retreat for the first time, I was intrigued by it, but I never would have thought like I was by any means prepared to be on a core team of a ministry, like having just kind of been on my own the last few years, only kind of just like practicing my faith privately or among my family. So I didn't really, like, when I first heard about it, I wasn't thinking like, oh yeah, like I want to like try and join this. But throughout just seeing all these people and growing in other ministries like Frassati, which we talked about, I started building relationships and friendships with these people, and you and Lauren included. And when I got asked if I wanted to be a part of it, I didn't answer right away because I wasn't sure. Like, I wanted to take the time to really contemplate it and attempt to pray about it and see if I could get some type of answer. Like, are you calling me to this, Lord? Like, is this something like that you have planned for me, that you want for me? And after contemplating, I thought, I really do want to do this. Like, I really want to grow in my faith, and while this might be a little outside of my comfort zone, that is where I'll have the opportunity to grow. So I joined in, and we started meeting, getting together, like planning out like this new evangelization, like you said, and ways to approach that. And I never looked back. I was fully in it. I was invested and excited, and like you said, that joy that exists among these people that are really serious about their faith. Just being around that, like, I felt better. I felt like I was like part of something bigger, and I noticed that, like, having that faith like be shared like with like-minded people, and having someone to chat with about it and just grow with together, And I think we'll get into that later, just how we've been able to, build a super strong fraternity and just be able to really take off and give all that glory to God in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's wild reflecting back on all of that, because I'm thinking about like my why. Like why did I do it? And obviously, as one of the fellow co-founders, I was asked to hold the reins of leadership for some time now, and have developed in that role, answering that call. But at the time, it was really like, I remember what it felt like to be a part of young adult ministry that ended up going to the wayside, because they're not all equal in terms of like the legitimacy of even the faith content, like the things that are up for topics of discussion and or the effectiveness of the leadership team to even something as fundamental as like to maintain everybody's safety,
right,
and to protect, like there were some interesting things that would happen at different times. At one point we even had to employ the Secret Service to remember that.
Whew, yes.
Yeah, to manage ineffective leadership. And so having developed from all of those life experiences, when I heard that the bishop himself wanted something done right and something of such breadth, I had come into my faith at that point because of Our Lady, right? Like the Blessed Mother literally like brought me into the faith as an adult. And, as like even my Guadalupe comforter was just like, I remember because I was the first one that made it into the cabin early that morning, and I had it laid out on my bed, and I've always been super touched. In fact, our last episode of The Rich Dawn that came out before this one, this is 28. If you check out 27 with Joaquin, I actually start to reveal for the first time my devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe, because she changed my whole life. And one of the most important things that I've ever learned from that experience is the importance of working with the bishop.
Right.
And the importance of, as part of being a saint is to really take seriously the way that Jesus established his church, and where the levers of grace are flowing from.
Right.
And regardless of human weakness and all of that, like Judas was in the church from the beginning of the church, and he was a bishop or an apostle.
Right.
Of which we believe that the bishops are the successors of the apostles. We have apostolic succession going all the way down. And so it all kind of converged that year in 2016.
Yeah.
When it was like, hey, like it's time to really answer this call and to show that respect for the office, and what a gift and what an opportunity to be able to truly bring the faith effectively, substantially, with all of its orthodoxy and all of it, right? The seriousness and the joyfulness,
right,
all together. And so we did it.
Yeah, we did it, and we're still working towards that goal. And we've obviously grown a ton since then. And, the ministry has transformed and evolved and branched off in a lot of ways. And, looking back at everything that we've done by the grace of God, it's beautiful, and I'm so glad that I'm a part of it. We didn't even get into this yet, but I actually met who's now my wife through Dynamis as well. And it's funny because actually before that retreat where I heard about Dynamis for the first time, I was really in a prayerful state. Like I was at that point where I really wanted to, I really felt like I was being called to marriage and to be a husband. But, I was looking for my wife, and I was very prayerful about, being open and looking, for that special person, like, if it be God's will for me at that time. And it was through Dynamis actually that I met my wife, Sarah. I actually saw her at a different event at St. Benedict's Church. It's called RE,
yes,
R-E, : and they, you know, host music events and things like that. And I saw Sarah playing the violin and just singing and praising and worshiping, like at the front of the church, you know, as part of this event. She's a violinist and an orchestra teacher, and I was just blown away. Like,
She's really,
I was
really
blown
talented.
away, and it worked out perfectly because concurrently with that, we were actually looking for someone to run the music ministry for Dynamis.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, this is my opportunity to like reach out to her and be like, hey, like, you know, you're amazing. We're doing this thing. And so yeah, that's how I met her. She eventually joined the ministry as well as one of our core members, handling the music aspect of our events where we'd go to different parishes throughout the diocese.
Do you remember the LED Frisbee night?
Yes, yes. To give context, Kyle and I were kind of discussing our future. You know, he was talking about you know, his relationship with Lauren and wanting to pursue marriage with her, and I was having the same talk with him about Sarah, like whom I met recently, and like, oh, maybe this, like, you know, maybe this is.
Do you think she'll be joining? Do you think, like,
right? Yeah.
You know, is she a good fit? I hope she is, because I really like her.
Yeah. Exactly. So, you know, fast forward to 2020. You know, we got married, and that's, you know, full circle from, you know, being prayerfully looking for my wife at that retreat, to joining Dynamis, and then to meeting her, having her join, you know, courting each other and cultivating our relationship over that time. And now we're married, and we just had a son back in April of 2023. So his name's Noah, by the way. And yeah, so it's been absolutely incredible journey.
Awesome. There's so many graces that have come from just saying yes to God, saying yes in a concrete manner with those who are here now in this century, in our generation, to answer all the challenges. Like, I don't think you know, there's, you know, that famous quote, like, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And that definitely describes my involvement, right? Like, in some ways, some of the more, like, maybe traditional, like, you know, people who actually have a day job to do ministry, youth ministry, young adult ministry, whatever it is, like, you know, they get paid, they get benefits and everything, like, and they do everything that we do, like, but it's pure volunteerism, like. So there was definitely some like fear and unknowns, and how are we truly going to answer these challenges, and do we even realize the magnitude of the challenge? Like, new evangelization, what does that actually even mean? And, you know, you can get philosophical and say it really is the old evangelization, actually. But it's a buzzword, right? And of course, it came from recent Holy Fathers, and that's why it's here. It's about re-evangelizing Catholics. It's about helping Catholics to take seriously their calling by virtue of the sacrament of confirmation. And I'm really appreciative of how you really, you know, showed honor to your family and your upbringing, right? And the legacy that they blessed you with, because, you know, not everybody, you know, comprehends that critical part of life, right? That, you know, this is the time for a soul to really take it seriously on their own terms. Right? Like, there's some really horrid, you know, if I dare, bastardizations of that concept, like, oh, that it's just graduation, right? Like, or that, like, okay, I just get this sacrament under my belt and then go off to college, maybe I don't go to church anymore. Like, right. Just a complete misunderstanding of the power of confirmation, right? Mm-hmm. With the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit, and the fact that you need to actually harness them, and it starts with knowing them, right? But it also starts with taking seriously as an adult, as a human with free will, that you're gonna embark on that journey and see it through to the end, right? To be a true soldier for Christ means, you know, like, what does it say in the Bible? Like, you know, there's no greater love than for a man to lay down his life for his friends. And like to death if necessary. Like there's no pure love and sacrifice, agape, right? And like, last thing I'll say on that is there's really, you can truly measure the level of friendship or love that you have by how much somebody's willing to suffer with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people don't understand that. Maybe we can get a little into why we think that is, but these are the things we had to figure out, right? Like, okay, studies show that it's the vast majority are losing their faith by 14. Well, how do we help? Because we come in 18 to 39, right? Like, but most of them are being lost by middle school to high school when the hormones are kicking. Okay, that's interesting. Like, how can we mitigate or fill in if somebody's coming in and they didn't have an upbringing like you had, right? Like your parents really made you take it seriously. What about the ones that don't? Right? These are the things that we had to tackle. And then also, if you want to go at the real macro level, like, how do we re-evangelize everybody when the church writ large has been having so many confusions, right? Even in the mystical realm, Sister Lucia says we're in an era of diabolic disorientation. It's like, whoa, okay, so now we're in the serious part of the faith, like spiritual warfare. And everything that comes with trying to do something good to build up the kingdom, and how, of course, the enemy of mankind doesn't like that.
Yeah.
Right? I feel free to riff off of any of those points, but this is basically what the bishop asked of us. Mm. And we just said yes. With all of our free time, all of our energy, all of our, our lives.
Right. Yeah, and I think the additional hurdle that we didn't really breach yet is that we really were a grassroots ministry, right? Like we didn't, while
Bishop
we had
alone was super specific.
Yes, yeah. While we had the blessing from our bishop and we're under the diocese, like, we didn't have funding for anything like, some of the bigger ministries that some of the bigger churches in the area have. We didn't have a public space. Obviously you've been opening up your own home and for a lot of these events. So that was a hurdle too. It's like, we have this big mission, this war, as you said, that we're fighting. And, we have nothing but, our bootstraps and God, which is, more than enough.
No question. He's with us, who could be against us, right?
Yeah, but it was a challenge. And, I think where we really succeeded was really just trusting in the Holy Spirit and working, like you said earlier, in your what you said about Our Lady of Guadalupe, also like following the authority of the church and, making sure that we're doing everything the right way. But I think that the thing that really was like that I noticed was just that everyone in the ministry like really just like knew that this was like a big deal, like evangelizing, catechesis, saving those fallen away Catholics. Like we all were on fire about like trying to bring these people back, especially those lukewarm Catholics that we were talking about. And I think that, just utilizing the skills and talents and the expertise of everyone that we had, because we had a big variety of people. And eventually when we,
now we have a really big variety.
Yes, we do. But, but also being very inclusive. We've had other denominations attend, our men's nights at Dynamis. We've, even had people that weren't even believers at all. So I think just having that openness and, not like feeling like you need to give certain people training wheels, because like this is God we're talking about. Like he's the one doing the work. Yeah, we're facilitating it, but at the end of the day, like we give the resources, we give the space, and we pray for them, and we put it in God's hands. And I think that's why we've been successful, is because we haven't forgot that. We haven't gotten into all these like politics or, anything, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
We weren't like tying ourselves down with logistics and all these things, because like I said, we were grassroots. Like, it was really just us, God, and the people that we're ministering to on his behalf.
Yeah, and this has come up too. Like, what do you do when you find out that the young adults that you're serving are going to get confession somewhere and they're being given not only heterodox but heretical advice in the confessional, right? Like, those are the kinds of things when you're a ministry leader, especially when you're, like, new, that you're like, what's my recourse here, right? Like, what are we going to do about this? Because we have a great love, maybe even a relationship with that priest, with that church, and, pastor, and then, but we also have to serve this soul, and we can't water down the truth. And that, I remember, because that happened some really early on in the life of our ministry. That was probably one of the first, like, whoa, what are we even called to do moments? Because it's like, okay, it is super critical and only appropriate for our leadership to be there for us, right? Like, it's unique to be given directly a mission by the successor to the apostles himself, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be in communication like every single day.
Sure. Yeah.
And then we need to fraternally maybe correct the pastor. We need to, obviously there's in the Gospels and in the epistles, right? Jesus explains the chain of command, the order of operations, right? So that's basically like what we had to do. We were like, okay, like, make sure we know this, train up our leadership team on this, and follow it.
Right.
And then, if a given pastor is not willing to change his ways, then what do? I don't know. Like, what have we done?
Yeah. So I mean, I can concur with that experience, receiving a confession and maybe, hearing something that based on your theological knowledge and your knowledge of the church, like, this is not what they teach, like, this is not in the catechist. And, I think that us being grassroots in a certain way was beneficial to us, in a sense that we weren't bound to like a specific parish or a specific pastor. We had that flexibility, we had that agility to evolve and change things up. And I think we'll get into this later, but one of the things that I think has been huge for the leadership team over the years, as well as for the members of our Dynamis family, is getting that catechesis from priests and from speakers like that really will tell it how it is. Specifically I'm referring to Father Chad Ripperger and some of the videos and talks that we've watched about him, where he's not afraid to call out things that he sees that are heretical. He's not afraid to be like, listen, like, this is what you need to do, this is the law, this is the rule, like, man up and do it.
Yes. Yeah, that was, so just to give some context on maybe some chronology here. Yeah. Right, so we founded it in 2016. We started with the idea of, okay, how do you actually connect the young adults throughout the whole diocese, right? Like, do these mass events, right? The idea was a Dynamis mass, come to the mass, and it was exhilarating, right? Grassroots, like, be a part of this parish community and for that day, and really just give a profound witness that the young adult Catholics are alive, on fire, like, serious and joyful about their faith. Sometimes, depending on the parish we would go to, there might not be a big young adult presence, and it was just like a breath of fresh air for the congregation to just experience that for a day. Yeah. Other times, things were going on well, or maybe even we went somewhere because of a connection with the young adult life there. Right. And it was, and then you help young adults plug in with whatever young adult ministry they had going on there, or even to help them develop one if they don't have one. But ultimately, it's always just to encourage that parish community to really just, restore itself, rejuvenate, just reflect on the importance of the vitality of Holy Mother Church and that she is living and breathing and continuously growing together, right? We're the next generation that has a specific set of needs, wants, and challenges that are unique to this period of church history, right? So that was really cool. It also came with a lot of lessons, right? Like, I remember the first time I heard a talk that was like, just be really careful about the idea of coming to a church if you're not already there regularly. And you don't ever want to give like a taking over vibe, right? Like we would train up our young adults, like, just be cognizant of where people are sitting.
Right.
Like, we can get into a debate about whether somebody ought to sit in the same pew all the time or sit somewhere else. Actually, historically in the church, you used to actually like pay for the specific seat you had, right? But then again, to even have a pew at all originated from Protestantism. So it's like, how far do we go, right? Versus the culture that we plug into today. But the whole idea is to bring that hospitality, right? Then the talk was saying like, okay, how far do we go, right? Because we were doing ushers, lectors, giving a young adult witness talk from the pulpit, basically whatever the pastor wants, right, is what we can do. And, plugging in with the choir even, bringing musicians like your wife who play these incredible instruments, and if it makes sense with what they've got going on, right? And we've done all of the above. And that was all super, super cool. Here's where it got funny. I heard a thing that was like, okay, just be careful about like greeting people. At the beginning we had greeters at the door, and it's like, hi, welcome to church. The young adults of the diocese are here. It's like there's a right way and a wrong way to do that, because a given individual, a parishioner's actual church, that's like an extension of their actual home, right? Because we are a faith community. We are one body. We're a family. And especially when you're at a given church that you haven't been plugged into with regularity, like the way that the priest said it in the talk I heard was like, could you imagine what it would be like if someone was at the front door of your own actual home and was like welcoming you into it? Like, hey, welcome to your house.
Right.
Like, it's actually kind of weird.
Yeah.
So these were all the things that we were literally learning in real time when fulfilling what we were, what was being asked of us. And so, we kept what worked. We shelved what didn't.
Sure, yeah.
And one of the other things that really jumped into the next evolution, which is the catechesis that you mentioned, was when we realized, like, okay, we're doing all these masses and, we're plugging into the individual needs of that given parish, very grassroots. Sometimes, the pastor, like, it completely made sense. Other times they were just like, wait, you work for the bishop? Like, what? Like, and it's like, no, this is real.
Right. Yeah.
And, it was realizing that when we would just throw like a Facebook event up, because Facebook was really big back then still in the young adult world, like you'd get all these young adults that would show up, which is awesome. And we would do our very, very best to like be intentional about like getting to know each other and try to like stay in touch before the next mass, but with varying degrees of success. And then it finally hit us. We were like, we really like, to fulfill what the bishop's asking of us, there needs to be more of a foundational launch pad from which we can truly develop those relationships and bring the most effectiveness to different parish communities, right? And that's where the fateful day in, fast forward to 2018, January came, where you and I went skiing.
Yes, we did, yeah. That was a day. Holiday Valley is where we went skiing, and just to give some context, from where the area that we live, it's quite the drive, right? It's about an hour, give or take. And Kyle actually had this video that he found by Father Chad Ripperger, whose name we mentioned earlier, about the different levels of prayer, specifically, mental prayer and getting into that, like common practices or tips and tricks, essentially, of how to achieve those levels of prayer.
Meditation part 1.
Yes, meditation part 1. So he was just like, hey, like, you want to listen to this video? Like, are you interested? Like, we'll just be driving. Like, so I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we listened to this talk, and oh man, I believe this was the first time that I heard Father Chad Ripperger, at least, knowing who he was prior, to listening. And it was heavy. It was beautiful. I learned so much. I felt like someone dumped an encyclopedia into my brain for an hour and just trying to parse through it. And, as we were learning this stuff together, and I think you had watched it previously, whether or not it was recent or not.
I actually have a whole backstory that I'll get into with that. Yeah.
So anyway, we were listening to this, and I mean, it was incredible. I was learning things that I had never known before. Like, he was mentioning all these saints, like he was mentioning like the theological history behind all of these things. And it was like, wow, like this is something like I want to go home and like try out this stuff. And I think it kind of got us talking, like, this is like a method, like this is a medium in which we can maybe, share like this kind of knowledge, like with our group. Because like you said, we would have these big events, like everybody would like say, yeah, I'm going on Facebook. We'd all get together. It'd be super joyful and amazing, and, a successful event by any regard. But, after that was over, it was like, okay, see you guys at the next one, whether it's a month, 2 months down the road. But, having the opportunity to actually grow together in faith and in catechesis, and to have the opportunity to address things that, might be going on at a specific parish or in the confessional or whatever else, like, having like a reliable, like strong, priest essentially. And, Father Ripperger isn't the only, speaker that we've hosted at these events. But I'll kind of let you go from there. Like, so we kind of were discussing this, like, how do we apply this?
Yeah, apprenticeship model. Yeah. So the backstory to that is I had been actually exposed to Father Chad Ripperger in the years before that, 2016, 2017 about. And, he had been at that point already generating these online conferences, typically an hour, give or take, in length, maybe like 40 minutes, plus. And I'm, I came from a philosophical, like an applied metaphysics background in my undergrad. Like I had to get over 180 credits for a bachelor's, which, was great. Knowledge for its own sake is awesome. In terms of, did I get the amount of, it's a dual master's equivalent, but when you say it's a bachelor's, that's another story. But it laid the foundation for my ability to really get involved in the world of theology, which was amazing, because I actually learned that, classically speaking, for anyone to actually be eligible for a theology master's, you need to have a master's equivalent of philosophy first. And you need to have read the entire Bible and memorized you need to have memorized its contents to the point where you can categorize the main themes.
Okay.
And then you start taking on theology.
Okay.
And so it was just by happenstance that I had already had those building blocks in place even before I had any idea that that's where God was leading me to do that.
Right.
But I was getting it through Father Ripperger, because Father Ripperger has a doctorate actually in philosophy. He's got his master's in theology, is my understanding. Okay. And he also happens to be an exorcist who's public, which is pretty rare. That's not the norm for the exorcistic field, but that is a testimony to his level of confidence in his field, and that he's capable of demonstrating what the church teaches in all those different capacities, while also being effective. Like it's not just heady book knowledge, it's experiential knowledge in the spiritual warfare realm, and it's just the complete package. So it was really resonating with me, and I had actually done, a brief stint with our local EWTN affiliate where, I was actually bringing, it was pretty revolutionary at the time, like, because I remember in the 2010s and beyond, back then the conversation was like, okay, YouTube is becoming more popular, like people are able to start really, putting their own version of events out there instead of just getting it through mainstream media or whatever the case might be. and we need Catholic versions of this stuff,
Right.
right? Formed wasn't really big back then yet. Like that was, those were the things that were being developed to answer the need of that time.
Right.
Now it's you know, pretty saturated, but like, so different circumstances today. But back then, you know, when I was involved with our local affiliate, like it's responsible for spreading the faith to the entire Northeast of the United States. And I was helping to bring people like Father Mike Schmitz, Matt Frad with Pints of Aquinas on the map.
Right.
Like they are enjoyed by many, many millions of Americans in our, you know, sector of the country now,
Right.
because of the work that I and many other great, you know, humble servants were doing behind the scenes so that they can get where they are today.
Right.
And, you know, in part, I mean, it's their own work speaks for itself, obviously.
Sure.
But in terms of what it's like in that media world and to be behind that aspect of it, right? So I was planting seeds back then, like Father Ripperger should be on the map, like in terms of,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, because I hadn't heard of him prior.
no, no one knew who he was back then.
Yeah.
You know, like in it beyond traditionalist Catholic circles,
Sure.
right? Because he, you know, he was writing articles for the Latin Mass magazine and other different things. But his reach was, you know, it was growing, but it wasn't huge. I mean, he was getting maybe 10,000 views on a YouTube video. I mean, some of them, you know, hit because back then too, like with your prayer videos, right? It's the law. I mean, this is like my undergrad was all in the tech world, so I understand the research and the stats of this, and like, you know, obviously when there's more saturation in the market or there's more eyeballs but there's also more content, you're not going to get as many views as back in the day when only a couple people were making those videos, right?
Yeah.
So it's that ecosystem. And, you know, so I was doing what I was doing behind the scenes back then, you know, having the conversations with the people who were able to, you know, put the things on the platform. And then I realized it's one thing for anyone to turn on a radio or plug into YouTube and to watch this stuff. But if you're just going to get that encyclopedic dump on your own and then like try to apply it by yourself, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe the spirit is extremely willing because it's being set on fire, but the body is weak for whatever reason, right? Any of the 7 deadly sins. Or whatever blockages, psychological or spiritual, that might be there, you may or may not actually follow through on it, right? St. Teresa of Calcutta,
Right.
the greatest journeys from the head to the heart, right? From the intellect to the will. So that's where we had that conversation at going to Holiday Valley to go skiing. Like my whole thing was like, Jake, we need an apprenticeship model. Like we need to help bring, you know, the young adults together, instill these concepts, help them to truly know their faith so that by the time we get to that next Dynamis Mass, like we've got the right people in the right places, we truly understand each other, we know each other, we have that fellowship component built, and the meat and potatoes of the faith and not just the milk are there. Right. And dude, the neurons were firing like crazy that day. It's hard to even like to bring today like the level of gravity of what happened that day. But it was just clicking. Mm-hmm. It was like, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. You know, this, you know, I was like, the how to raise a man video is going to be the first video for the first men's night.
Right.
And then there it was by, I think, January, possibly February, but I'm pretty sure January of 2018, later that same month, it was the first of, to this day, men's nights. And we've never missed since. Crazy.
Yeah. And to your point about, you know, the encyclopedia dump and like how do you make sense of all this, I think that was what like was crucial when we started these nights, was the conversation piece after the video, right? Because it's, you know, we weren't all just gathering to listen to a video. Like, yeah, we'd listen to the video and like break down the words, but then we would talk about it, and actually you would make like study guides, like because Father Ripperger's content is so rich and so dense, like we would literally give handouts to everyone that came to the events to like, and you know, pen and paper to take notes, because like there's just so much going on, and like maybe you have a thought you want to discuss like after the video's over with the group. And I mean, the conversations that we had over all of those nights, like it was just incredible. You know, the things that we uncovered, you know, in each other, like the how do you say, the devotions that we uncovered, you know, specifically like to people starting to say like the rosary, or, you know, people getting into the daily office and things like that. Like these were things that we all learned together. We're all catechized on together, discussed, and, you know, felt empowered to go on and apply this to our lives. And you know, even like we were talking about like branching off earlier and like trying to like establish like people in all these churches we were visiting originally before we kind of shifted our model a little bit. I feel like we even checked that box too, because now like, you know, we weren't just like going to a church like for one day and being like, hey, like, you know, we all exist, and like, you know, like there were certainly a lot of fruits that came from that. But, you know, I feel like there's a difference with like all getting together and like really like honing in on our faith and what it means and like how it works and like how we should live out these morals. It almost makes me think, you know, Riley, who you had on your show a few episodes ago, you know, she was a normal attender of Dynamis, and then she branched off and started Emmaus, you know, which is now serving Niagara County. So like, you know, I feel like that was like really cool to see. It's like now we're growing and like we're getting these people super on fire to the point where they want to, you know, serve their communities in a similar way as we're doing at Dynamis. And so I think that these nights, like in this ministry and how it's evolved, like it's really taken off and transformed. And you know, Father Ripperger has been a big part of that, but you know, everyone involved, yourself included, like you know, just going through these conversations and acting as a resource like to all these people. And like we said earlier, you know, it's not all like super devout like traditional Catholics that are in this group. Like, yeah, we cover a lot of those topics, but you know, it's for all people, you know, lukewarm to like extremely on fire to non-denominational. You know, we've ministered to everyone, and I think it just goes to show like how special this ministry is, and you know, how we've kind of held on to the grassroots aspect of it. And yeah, it's really exciting, and I'm so happy to have been a part of it so far, and I can't wait to see, you know, how we evolve from here.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, there's so many holy rabbit trails to go down from what you just laid out. Like, you know, doing the transcripts for Father Ripperger. Like, I remember back then, like, I didn't know of any way to like pull text from videos or anything.
Yeah.
Like, I was like transcribing them verboten,
Right.
like video after video after video, which of course, you know, it's like, you know, to teach is to learn twice, they say. So I'm learning, and then by fulfilling the role as the moderator with the conversations, you know, putting all these different concepts together. Like, I owe so much to Father Ripperger. Like, if in some wild circumstance he were ever to, you know, capture something like this, I just have to say, Father Ripperger, thank you so much for your loving witness to all of us. You know, you have really impacted the Western New York region in an inexplicable way. Like, we're talking about hundreds of young adults who have directly sat down for multiple presentations. Actually, it's been hundreds of presentations, and it's been that many more souls, because Father Ripperger has, I don't know, what, 150 or something, like, conferences that he's graciously offered. And I met him, and we've synced up. We've talked about this together, and I told him about like what we're doing, like the fact that we founded this, and that we've, you know, it's one thing to spread his message over the airwaves, which, yeah, you know, we had a hand in that, but to actually like walk with people with it and to make it digestible, right? Like, you think of a Dr. Hahn or these other brilliant minds, like, yeah, it's like a fire hose. You know what I mean? That's what you're going to get.
Right.
And yet, that doesn't mean that there isn't a place for it within young adult ministry. I mean, young adults are among the people that sign up for these conferences and they go get the blast, right? Like,
Right.
but there's a way to also really, really help those seeds get, rooted in fertile soil without being washed downstream,
Right.
Even if it is a holy wash.
Yeah.
And so, it's been truly extraordinary to just get excited, to be set on fire, and then to spread that flame, right?
Right.
And that's the whole Dynamis mission, right? It all started with Acts 1:8, right? You will receive the power of the Holy Spirit and spread it to the ends of the earth. And, the dunami, the dynamis, the power, the virtue, virtus, right? If you open the Vulgate, it's virtus.
Right.
So it's amazing. We're like the virtus of the young adult world. And with the approbation of 3 bishops, like this has been truly incredible. And Father Ripperger is a monumental aspect of it, but to your point also, like, it's not like a rad trad community by any stretch. Like there's certain, conferences that are or are not germane to what we do. Because our main focus is, what does our bishop want for us? And that is to connect all of the young adults throughout these 8 counties that make up Western New York, right?
Right.
There's 3 Latin Mass parishes out of 160 something parishes in our diocese.
Right.
And so we're here for everybody.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that up front too, because you get, we mentioned how the enemy of mankind he's jealous. Let's just say, no, not jealous, because God's jealous, but he's envious. Father Ripperger would want us to make that distinction,
Yes, he
because
would.
he does in his, right? And so you get it in the form of, like, you hear the attacks that come against us. Some people are like, oh, they just pray the rosary and pray to tons of saints. And it's like, yeah, is that a bad thing? It's like, that's a Latin Mass group. Nope. In fact, we've never even done a conference on favoring one form of the Mass over the other, ever.
Right. Yeah.
And yet, you get people that don't ever actually engage with us that might just have these, preconceived notions. But the fact of the matter is that we're here to serve our bishop. And part of that is spreading the orthodoxy of the faith, right? The meat. So we get spiritually fed after we get physically fed, right? We've always, out of our own personal grassroots donations, have provided food at all the different events. And and then you get back to the masses, and we have witness talks. We've had, members move on to become monks, religious. We've had Dynamis weddings, right? Like, all these different sacraments. And then it goes on to the baptisms of those children of those Dynamis weddings.
Right.
Like, it's the full gamut. And so, yeah, it's thank you, Jake, for all of your help and support, and most importantly, your friendship over the years, being there for me as I've, taken on my role as the current leader, and with the big and growing target that comes with the territory.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done. And one of the gifts that I think that you bring for sure every time is your relatability. Like, I know you mentioned you're introverted, and that's, we all get into that too, right? With temperaments, like the melancholics and the phlegmatics, right? Introverted side, the cholerics and the sanguines, the extroverted side. And we all, like, understand that. But if you would have never told anyone that, man, no one would even know. You're just so relatable. You're so down to earth. You're so easy to talk to, and you are passionate about your faith, and it exudes when you witness to people.
I really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for saying that. And I want to thank you as well, because, I mean, this ministry was built by many hands, but, I think that just throughout our journey together, like, you have been such a strong form of support, such an amazing friend. And, I would not be, like, in the place that I am today, without your help. And it just really goes to show the strength of our community within our ministry, because the topics that we're discussing, and that we're learning about are not like easy, light topics. I myself, would watch a video by Father Ripperger and be like, wow, like I'm upset, like just from like some of the stuff I'm learning, or just like the bluntness of like the way he said it, like this is how things need to be done. But I think the thing that's interesting is, once you to quote the Matrix, like once you take that red pill and once you kind of wake up to like this is our faith, like it's beautiful, but it's hard. It's not an easy thing. Like, obtaining perfection and becoming perfect as Jesus calls us to be perfect, like it's gonna take blood, sweat, and tears. And having that community, having that brothership, having all these men and women like surrounding us, like building us up and like helping us through these hard times, and helping us to work through and root out our vices through God's power and
grace,
and grace, and just like having these people to rely on, to hold you accountable and to inspire you and motivate you to want to grow and to become better and to grow in your spiritual journey. Like that to me is why Dynamis has been so successful, is just being able to come to a men's night or come to a women's night or come to a mass and truly feel that everyone in the room cares about what you has to say, cares about your spiritual life and your soul, and wants the best for you, and that they are actively praying for you for those things. And that's a lot different, I think, from a lot of revolving door ministries where you go in and you not to put down any other ministries in the area, because they're all phenomenal.
Yeah, they have a great role to
but
play.
You know what I mean? It's like having that strong knit community from these week after week after week of all catechizing and building our faith together. Like I have friends like that I'll have for the rest of my life, from this ministry. And I know that will continue, for other members throughout it as well. So thank you for all the hard work that you have put into this. As the leader of the ministry, it's a lot, because, as like this is all grassroots. It's not like you're getting a benefits package to do this, you know what I mean? Like it takes a lot of work, like even just the transcripts, but the planning and organizing communications and, setting up these events, like it's tiring work and it's hard work. And, every time you do it with joy and a smile on your face and, welcoming people into your home in the way that you do. And I'm just so appreciative to be a part of it and to have you in my life.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so, and all glory to God. Again,
absolutely.
You know what
all
I mean?
Glory to God.
Yeah, it's Him, but He requires us to be His hands and feet and eyes and ears and everything else. Like we are the mystical body of Christ, and when you have these sometimes serious situations where you get young adults that are in really tough situations, they really need resources. We figure out a way to get the resources to them. Sometimes it's just knowing that people care. It's hanging on and not losing your faith in spite of a scandal, right? It's the whole gamut. That is, being a Christian. And it's just amazing what you run into sometimes. You mentioned like the red pill in the Matrix, like that's a good analogy. I'm gonna riff off of that a little bit further, because one thing that I've found myself having to explain sometimes is when people do get exposed to what Catholicism really is for the first, it's weird to say it, but like for the first time on such an adult level, which is part of being a young adult, like it's like it can be overwhelming. It can be daunting. And, Father Ripperger, he comes warts and all, just like the rest of us, right? Like he's very choleric. And as, statistically, the vast majority of priests are. And, but he's a man's man. Like he's a father. He's, like that old school style. And that's where we kind of also come in to like make it relatable. It's not about, like it's not going to work if it doesn't resonate. But, then people ask these questions like, how did I get to this age and not ever know anything like this before? Why have I never heard it from the pulpit, right? Like, and so we have to be able to supply an answer for that, because that's part of explaining the new evangelization, right? And one quick and simple way that I find myself having to explain it sometimes is, well, think of the concept of the fact that we, part of being Christian and Catholic from day one is that we reject contraception. And then you look at the Pew statistics or whatever, and 9 out of 10 plus Catholics are doing that or have done that at some point. Right. And it's like, so that means that most of us don't really know what we're doing, right? Like, or the blind are leading the blind, or whatever the thing might be. And it's not a judgment statement. It's just a reality that, wow, there's this field hospital, there's this battlefield all around us. Like, people are bleeding out left and right. And you do kind of have to be tough enough to manage that as part of the spiritual warfare. And by the way, that's where confirmation came in, right? We are soldiers for Christ. And I think one of the more profound testimonies to our effectiveness with all of this is the fact that we have had people throughout the totality of our men's nights, women's nights, and co-ed nights that make the drive up to 90 minutes one way, week in and week out, just to experience this, right? Like, anyone can go watch Father Ripperger's or any of the other priests that we've brought in. Like, he's definitely our main, like, spiritual father by virtue of electronic communication.
Right.
But he's not the only one. And anyone can go get access to that. You can turn on the radio, you can go plug in YouTube right now. But it's different when you actually have people to walk with, when you have that accountability, when you have a local resource, right? Principle of subsidiarity being what it is, when you actually plug in within your diocese, within your faith community, to get the deeper resources that you need to make it work for you. Right? That's where knowing your temperament comes in. Temet noske, right? At the top of when Neo walks into the oracle's house for the first time. Keep going with the analogy, right? Know thyself, right? So understand your temperament, understand your personality, understand the fact that we all have a guardian angel and a guardian demon, right? It's like the whole, like, a good one on the one shoulder, a bad one on the other shoulder. Like, that's real. There is someone following you around trying to take you out at all times. Don't mean to scare you, but this is a young adult program. And so it's like, what are you going to do? Do you understand the 7 deadly sins? Can you name them? Can you name the opposite virtues? Do you know the cardinal virtues, the theological virtues, the 3 kinds of grace, the 9 levels of prayer? Come to Dynamis, because we can explain it and cater it to your individual soul's needs.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful thing. And, like you said, like, the fact that people are willing to, drive out, like, extended times just to be able to, like, be a part of that community and get their questions answered, especially get their questions answered by, people studying theology or people with masters in theology, people that are regular attendees of our group, having those resources and having that community, like, it's huge. It's huge.
And I think it's really important to point out too, like, how the Soul of the Apostolate was a really foundational piece of how we took what was intuitive, we took what was grassroots, we took everything that was continually working and with, experience and learning. And then we at one point, our leadership team, the militia, now known as the Ecclesians of the Virgin Made Church, came together, and one of the Lents, we all were assigned this book, right? So we all read this book, and I think this is the first time this is ever being revealed publicly, but we basically wanted to fill in any blanks that we were missing, because this is the seminal work, St. Pius X, the Pope, made clear, like, this is the way for a successful apostolate to be just that.
Right.
And and I say this in all humility, blew my mind was that just by following the Holy Spirit, we were already doing about 85% of what was in that book. And the other 15% that was missing was a devotion to the divine office.
Yeah, so that was something that we plugged into that really was an incredible transformation in a lot of ways, because I knew that priests say the divine office, throughout the day. Like I kind of was familiar with it.
Sure.
But
And deacons.
yeah, right. And I didn't really know like truly what it was, and like what that book revealed like to all of us as we were reading it and discussing it every week is just the power of public prayer, which the office is, essentially us plugging into, every mass being practiced throughout the world, like at any given time, like, and saying these words like that, like in conjunction with all of these other, both lay people and clergy. I mean, it was a game changer to have access to that. And I think in the book, remind me again, it said it kind of equated like saying one divine office is similar to like praying 100 rosaries
A day. I haven't ever targeted with specificity, like, is it all 8 or 7 now, post Sacrosanctum Concilium 89A, like hours add up to that 100, or how that, or if, because lauds and vespers have significantly more weight than the minor hours, like the proportionate of making that 100. But regardless, without the mathematics of it, the economy of grace is such that St. Alphonsus Liguori, the moral doctor, stated that there's public prayer, private common prayer like a group rosary, and then there's just personal private prayer. And it was a real challenge to recognize that when you're entering the foray of public prayer, just like in the Mass, like there are rubrics and they're to be followed. And your role in taking on that devotion is to submit to it on its terms, which is very foreign to post-fall man's sensibilities.
Yeah, especially, and because they're, while the path is narrow to heaven, there are multiple ways to get there, right? And some people have like more of a personal conversational relationship with Jesus,
right?
Some work through the intercession of Our Lady and have a strong devotion to her, which is 100% a shortcut. But just like learning about this public prayer and knowing that we, as just regular churchgoers, we're not priests, we're not deacons, well, some of us are, but just speaking the general population of the ministry,
right?
Having access to that, and in the form of the little office of the Blessed Virgin Mary, which maybe you could get into a little bit about that and how it's different between the the divine office. Sure.
And well, I would actually redirect people to, because this resource has been made available now thanks to this apostolate that, in obedience to our bishop, my spiritual director has commanded this to exist, to help spread the mission of Dynamis in part, right? That's one of the reasons for this. And so if you look at the episode with Brother James Boback, who has since, entered the Benedictines to discern, and we get all into the divine office in that episode.
Oh, okay.
But
I'll
it
have to
is,
check that out.
but the elevator version is that the little office, whether it's of the Blessed Virgin Mary, of the Holy Spirit, or the different versions that are out there, is little office itself is signifying that it's more compact and it's specifically catered for the laity. Whereas the breviary is what the clergy pray, and it's more comprehensive. Like I think within a week they get all 150 Psalms in there. The little office of the Blessed Virgin Mary specifically is what we honed in on for our ministry, because it's considered the most popular of all of the little offices.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that context. And the thing that I appreciate about it is, like you said, it's for the laity. It's pocketable. It's something that you can say, prayerfully still and get it done in a handful of minutes, depending on which hours you're saying. And I think it's really an incredible resource. And if you read the words, it's almost like poetry, It really is poetry.
Oh,
it's beautiful.
Anything
I
in
mean,
Scripture.
you could spend you could spend days and weeks just, meditating on just a few sentences in that book. So it's been an incredible resource to Dynamis. I know that a lot of people have built up devotions to saying this,
Yes.
and we provide it to our ecclesian members, but it's something that people are going out and buying for themselves to say on their own spare time.
That was a surprising phenomenon over the last 2 years that's been happening.
Yeah,
now.
and we even have I'm probably part of a couple at least group texts of people sending reminders, or we're saying I'm saying Vespers right now just in case someone's tied up or they forgot or whatever else. It's we're holding each other accountable as well, and it just feels incredible to get a reminder text from you or from one of the other members Vespers, and it's okay, I'm gonna plug in too, and I'm gonna say Vespers now, and not only am I saying it in conjunction with my brother Kyle, but also every mass throughout the entire world right now of all the other people saying it, laity and clergy and everyone else involved. So it's been incredible to learn about that, and just kind of thinking more about all the other things we've accomplished together as a community, Exodus 90. We've had multiple years going of that.
Yes, we've had our
which
fifth
happens
frat
during Lent. We've had the high priest fast, which a lot of people have gotten involved in. I don't know if you want to share with our
it's come up
viewers.
in the life of the podcast. It's funny actually. This we just posted episode 27, the Guadalupe Vaquero.
Yeah.
And so that was actually published on the 1-year anniversary of this YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and which was dedicated to Our Lady of Good Success. Just kind of came in with a silly beatboxing short. I was actually just getting kind of used to the platform.
Right.
I'd like to give a shout out to my mom on her triple feast.
Or whatever. And but I was also, kind of starting to talk about, fasting regimens a little bit, and then I got just so busy in my life. I've been meaning, if it's God's will, to really dedicate a resource to some advanced fasting, because kind of like how you noticed that there was a need or just a lack of certain prayers that were quality to provide for people. Mm-hmm. I've noticed, you'll get, even with Father Ripperger, he'll kind of hint here and there in some of his talks about how he's helped people to do 40-day water fasts or whatever. And it's yes, these things exist. And it's kind of like when you introduce somebody to an exorcist for the first time. For a lot of people, it's but when you've been in the industry for a decade or longer, it's kind of yeah, man, this is just another day.
Right.
And, you just get to the mechanics of it. But so too with fasting, right? Fasting is one of those things that some people, and it's actually kind of disgusting, because if you look on YouTube, you'll find certain legacy, let's say, resources out there that say, a professional doctor has said that if you fast on water for more than 1 or 2 days in a row, you could die. I've seen this out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, you haven't revealed your main profession, and I leave that to you whether you want to get into that. But suffice it to say, a thing or two about health, and that's just not true. And so, but like anything, it depends on the person. It depends on, you got to clear things with your medical doctor, mm-hmm. right? You've got to, you just really have to pray about that. But what I noticed was lacking was actual concrete resources to describe spiritual fasting, or the supernatural virtue of fasting, right, in a Catholic sense specifically, right? Of course, the natural virtue of fasting is, do it for some time, right? Build yourself up.
Right.
Start with intermittent, right? Wait until dinner to eat only one meal a day. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier to do that than to eat just breakfast and then go through your whole day, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But then, just like how decades make rosaries, intermittent fasting builds up to a day to 2 days or whatever, and you get in tune with your body.
Right.
So I've shared in the life of this podcast in the past. You can check out the episode with Dennis G and David Lewis and I on Sun and Earth to see we talk about this at length. that I had an encounter with Padre Pio that led me to develop the high priest fast. And, we've brought 24 men up to date about now that have taken it on, and you're one of them.
Yes, yeah.
How was it?
Yeah, so just to address the health aspect of it.
Sure.
For those who don't know, I am a registered nurse as my full-time profession. So I do know a little bit about fasting and the benefits of fasting physiologically, mentally. I mean, there are so many changes that happens to the body during a fast. Yeah, you go into ketosis, your body switches the form of energy it uses. It increases the sensitivity of insulin in your body when you fast. So it's almost like it's resetting your pancreas and your ability to regulate your blood sugars. Cell autophagy, where your body's cleaning up dead cells and junk that it just hasn't had the time for, because so much of your body's energy goes towards digesting food.
This is the part where the St. Luke of our ministry is like knowledge drop.
So the physiological and health benefits are known. It's been a practice for thousands of years. It's well studied, it's well documented.
And that's to say nothing of the theology of it.
Right. Yeah. And like Kyle said, of course you still want to get clearance from your doctor and all of that stuff. So, don't take any steps on that, without knowing that you're okay to do so. But yeah, I participated in the fast, and, I had experienced fasting and just, for the sake of the physiological benefits in the past.
Right.
But when I did the high priest fast,
which is from the Monday morning of Holy Week, or whatever week that you take it on, until the end of Easter Vigil Mass or Easter Sunday, or receiving our Lord in the Eucharist on Sunday, water only.
Yes.
And of course, if you go to daily Mass, receive our Lord.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the high priest fast.
Yes. So this was the first opportunity I had to really fast for the sake of, spirituality, for the sake of, offering up that suffering to the Lord. Because, it is a challenge. Those first couple days are, really a hurdle, because you're hungry, you feel weak, you have a headache, you get dizzy and woozy when you stand up too quickly. But, eventually, like, the mental clarity that it brings, I would say for me, and, maybe you can speak to your experience as well.
Sure.
By day 4, day 3 was kind of that turning point. I wake up on day 4, I just have clarity. I feel like the weight of the world is off of me. Like, I have just this energy that I didn't have. And to speak to the main part, which is the spiritual part, it's almost like you're not weighed down by, certain aspects of your life, and you find you have more time. It's like, you normally go and have breakfast and do this. It's like, now it's like, you don't have to worry about eating that week. It's just you and God. There's no distractions, everything else is stripped away. And it was a beautiful experience for me. Some of the rosaries I said during that time, some of the offices I said during that time, the fruits were just, it was like I could grab it out of the sky and eat it, and it was a challenge, and it was so worth it, by the end, being able to break that fast, like with receiving our Lord, after knowing that, like, you united the suffering that you experienced along that journey with him on the cross, like, especially during Holy Week, if you choose to pursue it during that week.
It is the greatest week of spiritual warfare.
Absolutely.
Every year on the planet.
Yeah, it's a battle, and it's like you're, instead of relying on yourself and your own weapons, you're dropping everything, bare, and you're saying, God, like, you handle this. Like, I'm just here to love you and to support you and to unite this suffering, like, in this, like, the hard aspects of this, like, with you. Like, that Good Friday, that first year I did the fast, that 3 p.m. hour, you know, it was just incredible, like just feeling, you know, united like to him during his passion, like with all those other things stripped away. It's a beautiful experience, and to anyone who has the opportunity to do that in their life, I highly recommend it. And you know, of course, there are other ways and other things that you can do if you can't do the whole fast, you know, such as including electrolytes into it, or you know, just like fasting on certain meals. And you know, we all are familiar with you know, Wednesday and Friday fasting and abstaining from meat during like Lent time. Sure. So this is just, you know, like it's not something you have to go to as your first thing, like, oh, I've never fasted before and I'm gonna fast for a whole week on just water, like, you know,
unless
like
Padre
said,
Pio tells you to, like happened for me.
Right.
That was my first ever fast. But to even actually, I'm gonna jump in and thank you for your witness. You know, like even just that right there, like for many years, I would never ever I would never talk about my fasting life with anyone, because I was always keeping front of mind, like, let what's between you and your father be between you and your father. So I really had to take it to prayer, like, you know, God, are you calling this to be something that is shared with others, right? This gift. Yeah. And, you know, would it truly be a gift, or would it then, like, would I be getting in the way, right? Or would it just not be of you? And what I learned, right, and constantly with spiritual director, right, once you find a good spiritual director, like, that's Jesus Christ talking to you, right? Like, I've needed my direct connection to Jesus Christ when I've had to involve the Secret Service, okay? Like, let's be real, we're not superheroes, but like, so recognizing that there's a difference between what God reveals to you as a result of the extended fast, right? That's between you and God, for sure. Versus the capability of helping your brothers around you and sisters to know, like, hey, here in the 21st century, there's still people doing some fasting. Right. And by the way, it's not just all those millions of views on YouTube for people doing it for the sake of hopping on a scale and getting giddy. Right. It's doing it the Catholic way. Yeah. Right? Like, we need this message. Yeah. And so that was like, it really struck me when it started to become more available. And also, you know, I've noticed, you know, we kind of theologize. Sometimes in theology, you theologize things post hoc, like, okay, you've got the chalice, and, you know, like the base of it is corresponds to faith, because faith is your foundation. The stem of it is like hope, because you're ascending to God. But then the actual cup is, you know, represents charity, because the blood itself is touching it, right? Like, sometimes we do that. And so too, I don't know whether I don't believe Padre Pio revealed this to me, but like, one thing that I've taken to a ton of meditation and contemplation is, like, the high priest fast is such a fitting title, because you think of the Old Testament where it talks about how, you know, the high priest only on 1 week a year would spend time in preparation. Pretty much his whole year was a spiritual preparation with all the sacrifices that he would make on behalf of the people. And then you finally got to that point where he could enter the Holy of Holies itself, which is the inner sanctum, the inner sanctuary. And like, it's like the penultimate experience, like, where man and the divine encounter each other. And he had to have a rope tied around him in case he wasn't worthy, because you saw the face of God. Sometimes they would, like, die, I guess, and then you'd have to pull him out. Yeah. That's hardcore, man. And it's like, but, you know, so just think about that. It's like, if you actually take that leap of faith, maybe it is your first time ever fasting. I mean, there's precedent for it. And but the point is let it be between you and your Father, and know that it is attainable. Yeah. Get the resources you might need if you need some inspiration, because that's where it starts. Jesus had to teach his apostles about fasting, or else we would have never heard about it in the scriptures. Right. Yeah. Right. So you got to talk about it. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, like you said, like, it's important for us to be able to let people know, like, that this is possible, like, that, you know, there are people in our community that have
done it, that it has bore fruits, spiritual fruits. And like you said, like, yeah, the personal aspect of what God reveals to you, it's like, yeah, that's like yours to hold and to cherish. But, at the same time, it's like, when you have such an incredible, joyful, overpowering experience, why wouldn't you want to, share it? Why wouldn't you want to tell people, like, you need to get in on this? Like, this is incredible. Like, come talk to me, in 5 days after you've been doing this, like, saying your little office, and like, let me know how you feel. Cause I know that you're gonna really
be a better
experience
person
something
on the other side of it.
Yeah. So I think it's, I appreciate your humility in saying that, but, I think getting that out there and like letting people know, like, hey, look into this, like, because there are resources out there, even previous episodes where you've discussed it in greater detail than we did today. But yeah, I mean, it was an incredible experience, the fasting experiences that I've had. And just to bring it back to Dynamis, having a fraternity of people that was doing it with me and was supporting me, and we've been in contact throughout the whole week as well, like to build each other up and to like keep everyone feeling strong and remembering why it is that they took this on,
Right.
has been the biggest blessing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And I guess just to bring the whole thing full circle, right? Like, so we kind of pulled the curtain, beyond the veil of like everything that brought Dynamis to fore here. And obviously its own gourmet meal. There's a lot. And we reached a point where we needed to, it's kind of like you have the oral Torah and then you have the written Torah, right? It's, you need both of it. And we reached a point where we codified all these different moving parts, because there are a lot, right? And we developed a regula, a rule of life for our, Marian militia, for the ecclesians of the Virgin Maid Church, the Virgo Ecclesia Facta. In fact, the aspect of Our Lady under the Virgo Ecclesia Facta was invented by my patron, St. Francis of Assisi. And, as you well know, we spent another one of our Lents, all as a ministry, reading the book Virgo Ecclesia Facta, which in the late 90s, John Paul II said that book, that doctoral research work, was like, it was awarded like the top doctoral thesis of the year that year. And we all did a deep dive into what does the Virgo Ecclesia Facta mean. And we further enhanced our existing regula even beyond what we already had, and and of course it's had a couple of versions, but to basically codify the spirit of the Dynamis ministry and who we are and what it is that we do, and to have been able to share it with Bishop Michael William Fisher, right? Of course it was already in place, but for him to re-bless that and to re-bless us, like, he was really, really impressed. Like, he was like, you guys are praying the divine office. Like, you've done all these things, grassroots, like, of your own volition. And he's like, keep going, like, keep doing it. And so, it's, I think that like any, good, lay association of the faithful, by virtue of apostolic privilege, it outlives its founder. Mm-hmm. And it needs that framework in order to carry on. So after so many years of, developing, having ecclesiastically approved and living this spirit, perhaps it makes sense to start to reveal that to the public as well, in addition to all these years of the high fast and everything that, even going beyond the high fast, right? The high priest fast, right. When you start doing these things with regularity, there's a way to go even deeper in your relationship with the Lord. And so I guess I'll just close off by saying that thank you for all of your involvement and the whole leadership team for helping me to to codify that and to be able to put down in a working template basically the spirit of everything that we've been doing over all these years, so that we can continue to share that.
Yeah, my pleasure. I mean, thank you for drafting it for us. And we really did do a lot of research into this. We looked at the regulas, the rules of
many
life,
different
of many different
religious orders,
and we really wanted to see what makes these tick. Like, how do the rules work? And like, how do you take something as like mystical and beautiful as virtue and like put it down on paper of like, here's what you should be doing, because it's difficult like to have like a written book of like, oh, here's all the things like you should do to strive for perfection, like, and to reach the ultimate goal of paradise with our Lord in heaven. And I just want to commend you for really like taking all of the things like that worked like with these other like rules of life that we looked into, and like really applying it not only to our ministry and to our diocese, but to the modern era of what is now 2024. It's like things aren't exactly the same as they were back then, so to be able to take a rule of life and tailor it in a way where it's doable by our community and by our ministry, but no less I don't want to say no less difficult, but no less impactful in terms of what it actually means. Why is it that we're following these rules? Like, why are we striving for daily mass? Why are we saying a daily office? Why are we having this devotion to Our Lady with a daily rosary? And also covering like all the other logistical aspects that you'd have to really have written down if you want to have a ministry that's going to outlast the founders. There has to be things on succession, there has to be things on addressing issues or discipline within the community. Like, so to have this document like finalized, to have it blessed by our current bishop, like it's huge. And I would really love to see more people like become familiar with it, to have more people come on board with the ecclesians. If you feel that you're being called to something greater, that you want to really pursue a spiritual and virtuous life that's going to be difficult but is going to be even more joyful, like that's something to look into. Absolutely. And thank you for everything that you've done for the ministry, for the regula. I'm so looking forward to what's to come. We have big things in the pipe for 2024. We're constantly growing, we're constantly evolving, and I mean, all glory be to God. Thank you for being here on this journey with me.
Yeah, likewise, man. And I have to thank our local bishop, Michael William Fisher, right, and of course Bishop Scharfenberger and Bishop Malone, of course, for our ability to do this, and and my spiritual director, who has sacrificed countless hours to really help me to lead us and to really help us to stay on track, to understand what's realistic, right? Because you really make a prescient point there that, we are not a formal religious order at this stage, right? This is a lay association. And how do you take the discipline, the rigors, the orarium of a regula, but apply it to, being in the world, even though we're not of the world? And right, so that's why you see all the different things in the different chapters that make up the regula, right? Like, that came from our ecclesiastical direction here in Western New York, saying, make sure you get lauds and vespers in, right? Those are the hinges of the office. Mm-hmm. And then go ahead and take on any third hour, right? Even our bishop said, you're okay to do prime, even though it says it's suppressed in the Second Vatican Council, right? Like the local ordinary has authority and power according to the canons to allow for things within a given jurisdiction, right? Like that's big news. That's exhilarating.
Yeah.
And obviously we all know it, but here we are sharing this now in obedience to that same, authority structure so that all of Western New York can get involved, which is what the bishop asked us to do. So it's exhilarating. It's humbling. It's sometimes it's overwhelming. I mean, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Like, we were asked to do a lot to be able to do all that grassroots, right? And to do that, by our own bootstraps, as you said. But in the spirit of St. Juan Diego, we took it seriously and we said yes, and with great joy. And so, yeah, just thank you again. Thank you to the leadership team, and thank you to everyone that worked behind the scenes to make it possible, because now we can continue to spread it and to help souls recognize that blueprint to sanctity, and maybe eternal beatitude can even begin in this life.
Amen, man. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you, just to mimic what you say, to all the men and women of the ministry that have made it such a joy to do this work, this joyful but sometimes arduous work.
All those hours of driving. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been incredible. And I mean, this community of men and women, I mean, I am just so grateful to be a part of it. And, I'm appreciative of you for having me on the show so that we could discuss this and, talk more about, the origins of this ministry that we've been in for years together, that, people know the name of, but they may not know like the full story. So I'm glad that we had that opportunity to shed some light on that.
100%, man. And final word to bring it back to JM Videography and just Jake the man and everything that you've got going on in your life. Any like parting words of wisdom, or maybe you can remind us how to plug in for anybody that wants to get involved with what you've got going on. And
thank you. Yeah, I have no words of wisdom for you all right
simple.
But I will just express my gratitude. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to perform work that I am passionate about, with creating videos and content. If you're ever interested in working with me, you can reach out jmvideography.com, and you can also check out my social media handles, Jake Mrugalski, Mrugalski. Thank you so much for letting me share my business with your viewers as well.
100%. Anytime. And just thank you again for your incredible friendship. And with that, if you enjoy content like this, we exhort you, please get involved. Subscribe if you haven't, but especially the recurring, viewers and listeners, share it. You know what I mean? Spread the word of mouth. In our area. Let's fulfill what our bishop has asked of us. Let's really make the entire Western New York region set on fire with charity, so that we can become saints together. And God bless you.
Amen. Bye, everybody.
Yes. Oh, and here's the video.
You click up here for more.